We have to invite another speaker, Norman. Norman is an environmental expert with a lot of practical job experience in green facility in infrastructure. He is now the Business Development and Performance Director of Veolia Hong Kong. Norman, maybe the time is limited. Maybe I pass the time to you to yourself to explain about yourself and also your work and maybe your company also. Yeah, Norman.
All right, thank you, Felix, for the introduction. I guess I would share the screen. Can you see my presentation? Hello?
Yes, I see your presentation. Please start.
Okay, all right, thank you. Well, thank you for the introduction, Felix. My name is Norman Cheng, and as you mentioned, I am now currently the Business Development and Performance Director of Veolia Hong Kong. I am extremely glad and delighted that Green Council actually invited me to speak on this subject. Climate change obviously is a very important issue for our company. Veolia, being the largest environmental management company in the world, wants to be the champion of ecological transformation, and we feel that it is our
Norman, sorry. Will you please, your sound is a little bit loud.
Okay.
Loud. Yeah. Will you please adjust?
Is this okay? I'm just loud.
It's okay. Yeah, it will be better, but it's still a bit loud on our side.
I've adjusted to very low volume. Is that okay?
That's good. Yeah. That's good. Now it's better. Thank you.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. My voice is very projecting, so I will try to speak a little softer. But as I mentioned, I think, as I said, our company is the leading environmental management company in the world. And we wanted to lead the change. And we feel like it is our duty to lead and tackle this extremely complex challenge. So this is the basic setup for my presentation today. And I'll just go have a basic description of our company. As I mentioned, Veolia is the largest environmental management company in the world, and our headquarters is actually based in Paris. We are a Fortune 500 company with 230,000 employees worldwide. And in terms of environmental management, we really have a long history of over almost 170 years of experience, focusing on water and wastewater, solid waste, and also energy management. So our annual turnover is in the range of €38 billion per year. Hong Kong itself is a very strategic location for Veolia, as it serves as the Asia Pacific headquarters. In Hong Kong, as I mentioned on this slide, we have over 1,600 employees with more than 30 projects in Hong Kong. So we do have a very large presence here, predominantly working with the Environmental Protection Department of Hong Kong. So operating many of the environmental management facilities, including landfill, transfer stations, and different parks, such as Old Park and T Park. And not only that, we have quite a few projects on district coolings and also building energy performance contracts around Hong Kong. So in terms of climate change, the context of climate change, I just want to give you a bit of a background. I think This is obviously a very important topic for all the countries, or for most of the countries, and governments have already been taken measures to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. A lot of the countries are trying to make a clear commitment to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. So, for example, in China, ahead of COP26 in October 2021, they have officially submitted its carbon neutrality before 2060 target and updated NDC targets to the UNFCCC. For another country like Japan, at the Leaders Climate Summit in April 2021, they've already announced a new 2030 domestic emissions reduction target of 46% by 2030 from 2013 levels, with the possibility of additional measures to achieve a 50% reduction. In South Korea, for example, the NDC announced at COP26 in setting a target to reduce emission by 40% by 2030, so below 2018 levels. So a lot of countries have already set very aggressive goals in order to tackle this particular problem. Obviously, Hong Kong is no exception. As highlighted in the Climate Action Plan 2050, I think Henry has already described that Hong Kong will try to strive to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. And, once again, Hong Kong obviously is very much in support in tackling climate change. And as the government's unrelenting effort over the past years have led to many action plans. As I mentioned, the latest is the Climate Action Plan 2050, where it really highlighted the major carbon emission in Hong Kong. They were attributed to power generation, approximately 66%, transport, 18%, and also waste management, 7%. And as such, there are other plans that have been developed to supplement the Climate Action Plan, highlighting the measures to be implemented in order to tackle the aforementioned problems. As for Veolia, I think Veolia's purpose is really to contribute to human progress, to the Sustainable Development Goals set by the United Nations in order to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all of us. In this way, I think Veolia prepares for the future, protecting the environment and responding to humanity's vital needs. There are 17 Sustainable Development Goals identified by the United Nations, and our company has direct impacts on 13 of them, especially in the areas related to the planet or to the environment, the society, the employees, the shareholders, and our clients. And in COP26, Veolia mentioned that it was preparing to double its commitments for reducing the greenhouse gas emissions while reinforcing its reputation as the leading partner for its customers' low carbon and resilient strategies. So in September 2021, Veolia also signed the business ambition for 1.5 degrees Celsius and commit to define by the end of 2023 a new reduction target, which is aligned with the latest criteria of the Science Based Targets initiatives, integrating Scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, including N2O and methane into the calculation. And so what does it really mean by the Science-Based Target Initiative? So the SBTI is actually a partnership between CDP, the United Nations Global Compact, World Resources Initiative, and the Worldwide Fund for Nature. they have developed this SBTI net zero standard, which provides a guidance and tool for companies to set science-based net zero targets. And so, really, what does it mean by scope one? And this is very important because it's very important for the companies to understand their own carbon emission. And for that, we talk about scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, and possibly even scope 4. And so, there have been a lot of buzzwords, like in terms of carbon emission or in terms of carbon neutrality. We very often talk about carbon neutrality or net zero. Net zero very often refers to the amount of all greenhouse gases, such as carbon dioxide, methane, or even sulfur dioxide, that are removed from the atmosphere, that is being equal to those emitted by human activity. But on the other hand, if we are talking about carbon neutrality, it specifically refers to the amount of carbon being removed from the atmosphere, which is being equal to the carbon emitted. In essence, it's a slightly more narrow term for what happens in net zero, especially focusing on the removal of carbon. So in short, achieving net zero and carbon neutrality has the same sort of end results. Removing harmful emissions from the Earth's atmosphere. But the scale and kind of emissions removed are slightly different. So as I mentioned, in terms of carbon audit or carbon emissions, we very often talk about 3 different scopes or even 4 different scopes. So for scope 1, we are talking about direct emissions from our own activities. For example, if we are talking about an incinerator, if we do need fuel to heat up to get the temperature up, then that would be calculated as a scope 1 emission. For example, if we need fuel for the combustion of the boiler, and then that would be calculated as direct emission in scope 1. And also, for example, if we are operating on-site vehicles, such as diesel vehicles, then that would be part of the emission, direct emission. In addition, for example, if we are operating an incineration unit and there is direct emission in terms of carbon dioxide, methane, or other gases, then that would be classified as direct emission. For example, if we have uncaptured methane at the landfill, which escaped into the atmosphere, that would be considered as part of direct emissions as well. For scope 2, in that sense, it would be indirect emissions from energy purchases from third parties. For example, if we are operating a plant where we need to purchase electricity from either CLP or Hong Kong Electric, so the emissions from energy production would be counted as scope 2 emission. And as for scope 3, it's all the other indirect emissions such as water and consumable production, byproducts treatment, or upstream and downstream transport as well. And as I mentioned, there are scope 4, there is now scope 4, and Veolia is now taking that into consideration as well. And this is what we call the reduce emission or the avoid emissions. So on the top right, where I talked about reduce emission, is how we use maybe renewable energy to reduce our energy consumption on site. For example, if we were to implement solar panels, or we use the methane that is in the anaerobic digestion unit for wastewater treatment plants, because in the anaerobic digestion unit, they would enhance, or methane would be generated as a result, and methane could be somewhat captured, and it would be produced. It could produce electricity as a result. And in that sense, I think that would be more in terms of what we talk about reduced emission. As for avoid emission, this is for third parties. And we have cases where in the landfills, because we produce additional methane or excess methane, and this methane is actually being provided to other companies, for example, TAN gas or CLP, where they would actually use this gas for either injecting into their grid, or they would produce electricity as a result. And in that sense, that would be more or less avoid emission. And so just want to talk a little bit about our carbon journey so far. I think it's really started in 2012, where we started a pilot lab in France to capture carbon dioxide. And we have gone a long way. I mean, in terms of having different sort of systems at different locations in the world. For example, in Oslo, we have a waste to energy plant where we were using different types of feed. In North America, we were capturing and reusing some of the chemicals for sodium bicarbonate plant. And in 2020, we have an industrial site where we sold carbon dioxide to local stakeholders. And so we have in Veolia itself in 2021, we have established an innovation committee, which has decided to create a team called CCUS at the headquarters, focusing on the development of carbon capture utilization projects. So we are actually looking into developments in the UK, in the US, in Hong Kong, in Taiwan, and in China as well. This are two other examples that we are working on in France. For example, we are trying to produce hydrogen from a wastewater treatment plant in France, where it's approximately 10 kilograms per day, and it would be used to fuel two vehicles. Whereas on the right-hand side, we do have a pilot which uses sort of algae to capture carbon dioxide. And so this is some of the initiatives that we have in France. So back to Hong Kong, basically. I just wanted to maybe give you a glimpse of what we do in Hong Kong and in terms of our decarbonization effort. T Park, we did design and build this plant, and now we are actually operating the plant on behalf of EPD for 15 years. So it started in 2000, the operation phase started in 2016. So basically, this plant is able to reduce 2,000 tons of wet sludge per day. All municipal wastewater treatment or sludge from the municipal wastewater treatment plant actually come to this facility for treatment. And basically, this is a self-sustaining facility. What does that mean? We are not connected to a water supplies network nor a drainage services network. So we take water from the sea. There's a small desalination plant on site where we take seawater and convert it into fresh water for either drinking purposes or for process purposes. The wastewater produced on site is actually treated to recycling standards so that it could be used for toilet flushing and also for irrigation purposes. In terms of energy, the plan was designed if the sludge is in the range of, let's say, a certain dry solids value in around let's say 25 to 32%. Then there would not be a need for additional fuel. It would be pretty much autothermal. It would be an autothermal process. Steam generated would actually generate excess electricity, where it became converted into electricity. And this the electricity would first be used on site, and any excess would be supplied to the grid, to CLP's grid. And we are also operating another facility called O-Park, and this is the first food waste recycling facility in Hong Kong. It takes approximately 200 tons, or is designed for 200 tons of food waste per day. And also, it utilizes the anaerobic digestion concept, where methane would be generated, and that methane would be fed through to a CHP, where electricity would be produced as a result. And in that sense, it is also self-sufficient in terms of energy. Excess electricity will be supplied to the grid, operated by CLP, obviously. And the solid, the digestates would go through a composting unit, where it would be transformed into compost or in soil conditioners. And, when we talk about decarbonization, this is something that we are trying to, a lot of energy we are trying to reduce, and a lot of avoided emission as well in terms of carbon reduction. And in terms of energy management, we are operating the district cooling system at Kai Tak. And by utilizing a centralized district cooling system, it would be approximately 10 to 12% lower than having an individual chillers at each of the location. And so by using this, it would be able to save up to 85 million kilowatt hour per year, achieving very high energy efficiency with less space. And one of our solution is to, we have developed our own energy optimization system as well, which is a more real-time data monitoring and analysis tool. And this would help to boost energy efficiency as it collects, monitors, analyze, and then control energy, water, and waste values in real time. And then it would help to define areas for optimization and also predictive maintenance in order to boost performance. And in terms of, as I mentioned, in the Climate Action Plan 2050, 7% of the carbon emission is actually attributed to waste management, because we still rely heavily on landfills for disposal of waste. We are actually operating the landfills in Hong Kong. And what we are trying to do is to really maximize the methane that is generated on site. The landfill itself actually serves as a very large anaerobic digester. So methane would be produced as a result. If methane is actually or escaped into the atmosphere, this is about 28 times worse than emitting carbon dioxide. So our goal is to capture as much methane as possible. And so by doing so, we first capture the methane for internal use, such as using the landfill gas for ammonia stripping or for our wastewater treatment plant, and also for our administration building as well. But excess, we would deliver the gas to both either town gas or CLP for their further usage. And so this is a way to minimize or reduce scope 4 of our carbon emission as well. I think this is pretty much it for my presentation, and I just wanted to thank once again Green Council for providing me this opportunity to present our decarbonization solutions on what is in the field of environmental management, you could say. So thank you.
Thank you, Norman. Yeah, you give us a lot of option and solution. In fact, we found some question from the audience. The first one is, will you please elaborate the major differences between the carbon neutrality and also the net zero? Is there any international definition?
I think as I mentioned, net zero, we are talking about other gas emissions as well, including nitrous oxide, for example, or sulfur dioxide, for example. So the definition itself is a little wider. In terms of carbon neutrality, we are really focusing on the carbon emission itself. So that's the slight difference in terms of the definition. But at the end of the day, we are talking about removing harmful substances into the atmosphere. And so at the end, we are trying to achieve, I think both definitions are trying to achieve the same results. But in terms of net zero, I would say it has a wider context than carbon neutrality.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for a quick answer. Another question is, among your mentioned infrastructure, which one should be built more to fully maximize the decarbonization potential for Hong Kong? Maybe I add one more is in a little with limited supply of land in Hong Kong.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a very good question in terms of the waste management strategy in Hong Kong, and that's one thing that the government has been looking at seriously for the past for the past decades or so. So I think in 2000, that's why the first sludge incineration plant was built in order to reduce waste going into the landfill. And that actually established this first sort of renewable energy plant in Hong Kong. And in terms of the strategy for Hong Kong, I think there are many initiatives that the government is now taking. The first integrated waste management facility is currently being built. It would probably be in operation by 2026 or 2027. And so that plant is able to handle a municipal solid waste of 3,000 tons per day. And that would drastically reduce the amount of waste going into the landfill. Currently in Hong Kong, approximately 15,000 tons of waste is generated on a daily basis. 11,000 are municipal solid waste in nature. So by reducing 3,000 tons, we still have 8,000 tons. But the government is now looking into what we call IWMF 2 and IWMF maybe even 3 and 4 as well. IWMF is in the pipeline. IWMF 2 is in the pipeline, and that plan is even bigger than IWMF 1 with a capacity with a design capacity of approximately 4,000 tons per day. So by doing so, that would drastically reduce the municipal solid waste going to a landfill. And in that sense, that would minimize or reduce the methane that would possibly be emitted into the atmosphere while converting the waste actually into energy. And so I think that is also a very good sort of roadmap for the waste management strategy in Hong Kong. Obviously, there are all the other options as well, including food waste facilities. But it is at the moment, I think, because food waste are not segregated in Hong Kong, and that makes these facilities, operating these facilities, a bit challenging.
Okay, I think I come to the last question. Okay, this one is interesting. Recently, there's a news about the recycle factory closing due to the termination of the lease. Will it be a challenge for for infrastructure development, which might affect your investment or affect some of the investor? What do you think?
That's obviously Hong Kong has always been a very challenging place for, especially for private investors in Hong Kong for operating environmental management facilities. Why is that? There are many reasons for that, but in Hong Kong, land is actually a premium. So land itself is very expensive. Plus, the operating cost in Hong Kong in general is higher than other places in the nearby juncture. And so if for private investment, if there isn't any subsidy by the government, it becomes very difficult for a private in this, to make it into a business case where it is favorable for a private initiative. Having said that, there has to be a balance between financial initiative and also environmental protection in Hong Kong. So this is something that I think we need to further strive to make sure that Hong Kong also has the capability to reduce or enhance our environmental protection capability.
Yeah, Norman. Yeah, thank you for your insightful presentation and advice. Time is running out. Sorry about that. I have to say goodbye to you and thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Felix, for the invitation once more.
Yeah.